Magandang araw, podmates! Howie Severino muli na nagpapaalala na nakakatalino ang mahabang attention span. At nakakatalino ang makinig sa ating panauhin ngayon si Dr. Ivan Henares, matagal ng heritage advocate, UP professor at ngayon ay Secretary General ng UNESCO National Commission of the Philippines. Magandang araw sa iyo, Dr. Henares.
Magandang araw sa iyo, Howie, at magandang araw sa lahat ng yung tagapakinig.
Thank you for joining us. No, just want to inform our audience, kasalukuyan kang nasa Paris, no, isang heritage capital ng mundo.
Yes, we are here to attend the UNESCO Executive Board meetings. The Philippines is one of the 58 countries that is part of the board. So we are here as support staff for our permanent delegation.
Okay, I'll ask you a little later about that mission and about being in Paris, no? Dahil maraming treasures na mga gusali rin dyan. Ano? But meanwhile, may malungkot na nangyari sa Maynila. No? Kasusunog lang ng Manila Post Office, isa sa pinakakilalang landmark. Hindi lang sa Maynila, pero maaring sa buong bansa. No? A heritage treasure, an important cultural property that's an official designation by the government. Ang tanong ko, unang tanong ko, Ivan, no? Anong naramdaman at naisip mo nung nalaman mong nasusunog ang Manila Post Office?
Siyempre, napakalungkot, no? We've had that post office since the pre-war period. The structure itself, the frame, the structure survived the war, no? It was reconstructed after the war kasi that was bombed, no? So it's one of the remaining landmarks really of the Philippines from that period. And it has a lot of course, you know, it was designed by Juan Arellano, one of our more prominent architects during that time. And it's really a landmark of our Manila civic district, no? We've had so many iconic photos of the post office because of its location, especially by the Pasig River, from various periods, even up to today. So this is definitely a very important building to the Philippines. It's a national cultural treasure, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah.
Yung marami sa atin, Ivan, no, na may personal experience mismo diyan sa Manila Post Office because you don't have to deliberately go to it para makita siya, no? Hindi katulad ng ibang building kasi maraming daanan sa Maynila, makikita mo yan kasi it stands alone, di ba? Right next to the river. And I understand, doon talaga yung ginawang location ng Manila Post Office para may access sa maraming direksyon, ano, ng Maynila, right on the river para madali yung river transport ng mail, no? So ang daming iconic picture. So it's probably one of the most famous and most visible and recognizable landmarks in the Philippines.
Yes, definitely. It's one of the most recognizable, and the location is really, you know, very, you know, it was well selected as part of the Burnham plan. So it is one of our most iconic buildings in the Philippines.
Nabanggit mo that it survived World War II, but it was also bombed, no? It was heavily damaged. In fact, dami kasing lumalabas ngayon tungkol sa Manila Post Office, no? So I saw a photo of what it looked like, you know, right after World War II. And to be honest, it looks like the way it looks now, no?
Yeah, it was an empty
gutted,
shell,
no?
Howie. It was
gutted.
gutted. It was an empty shell. But they reconstructed it back to the plans of Arellano, no? So I mean, you know, after the war, we were given reconstruction money. Unfortunately, many of the buildings were not reconstructed. The Philippine government at the time opted to build new structures elsewhere, whereas in Europe, like here in the war damaged areas of Europe, they reconstructed the buildings like they were before. No, in particular, Warsaw is a good example of that. No, they reconstructed the old city despite all the damage. Unfortunately for us, we did not reconstruct Intramuros. No, we did not reconstruct all these other places, but at least the post office was one of those buildings that got reconstructed after the war.
And so it gives us hope, no? Kasi Daming nalulungkot nga dahil yun nga, it's so visible, it's very much a part of our experience with Manila, and then to see it in this way, no? So there's kind of a collective very kind of sadness about this, no? But now that you say that, naibalik din itong yung dating ganda niya from the World War II gutting
Yeah.
of it. Let's
And
just hope
I
na
mean,
na
you
maibabalik,
can,
no?
I mean, gut when it comes to fires, they're very unfortunate. We all know about here in Paris, the Notre Dame is being restored after the big fire. Windsor Castle in the UK is also restored after the fire. So I mean, these things happen. We of course there you can't return, for example, the treasures or artworks or artifacts that were lost inside, but with
Mm-hmm.
modern technology, these things can still be reconstructed, no?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you have the original plans, and especially since we have a lot of photos of the
Mm-hmm.
post office. So again, you know, it's really unfortunate that the fire happened, but um,
Pero pero you meant you but it's ano no, it's not an automatic decision, of course, to rebuild structures that were gutted. Katulad ng sinabi mo, there are many other buildings that were destroyed during World War II and have been destroyed since that were not reconstructed, that were not restored, no? Napalitan na din na, alam mo naman, as a heritage advocate, that's the big struggle, no? To save built structures that are valuable from being demolished and replaced by, malls and condo buildings. And so what certainty or guarantee do we have, if any, na maibabalik yung post office sa dati? I mean, are there forces at work that would want this leveled, demolished, and replaced by a nice 20-story high-rise
no,
condominium building with beautiful views of the
I don't think
Pasig?
I don't think I don't think the demolition is going to happen. No, I don't think the Philippine government is going to allow that. Number one, the building is government property. Number two, the structure is a national cultural treasure. So the National Commission for Culture and the Arts has the right of first refusal to purchase any national cultural treasure. That's what happened for the Met. The City of Manila, the Metropolitan Theater, that's what happened. The NCCA used its right of first refusal to purchase the property. So the NCCA can match the price. So I don't think it's going to be demolished. No one's going to allow that to happen. Okay.
Okay, well, that's
And
reassuring.
yeah,
Yeah,
we, you,
that
I think our senators will not allow that to happen.
okay.
It's going to be a national travesty if we lose this structure. It's a very iconic structure. It's very important to the city. So let's not talk about demolition. That's not going to happen,
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
because there are a lot of
mm-mm.
people, who will really be watching over this building. It's a question of what the future use will be, because there are of course proposals for it to be transferred to government cultural agencies, because the Metropolitan Theater is already with the NCCA. So I think the National Museum is interested to take over the post office. And now that this happened, it's an opportune time to really rethink um, all the plans. It's really, it's really interesting if we can actually um, do a holistic discussion about Manila's civic center. No, it shouldn't just be the post office. It should be the entire area that we should be talking about already. No,
Mm. Okay, I
there's
will
a
I will ask, yeah, I'll ask you about the overall picture sa Maynila, no? But before we go there, may mga gusto ko lang itanong tungkol dito sa Manila Post Office. And the reason why there's some concerns about its future is because parang di pa malinaw kung bakit nasunog, no? I mean, I don't know if you have any information to add, no? And then kasi kung hindi pa malinaw and hanggang ngayon ay medyo misteryoso pa, you can't help that there are rumors filling the vacuum of information. Kasi nangyari daw to, nag-umpisa raw sa basement in the kind of in off hours, and hanggang ngayon hindi nga malinaw, no? So of course, they're not just concerns but even suspicions, no? And in fact, there's a group called the Manileños for Heritage. Meron silang Facebook page, and then they're calling on advocates, no, heritage advocates like yourself and other, concerned citizens, to express a strong statement. I'm quoting now from their own statement. They're calling on concerned citizens to express a strong statement against private individuals and entities with self-interest which have a malicious intention to take over the Manila Post Office property. Now, kayo, matagal na kayo sa heritage sector. Do you know of any private individuals and entities with this so-called self-interest which may have a malicious intent to take over the Manila Post Office property?
You know how it's the
May
first
awareness ba tayo dyan?
when the fire happened, I saw these posts, and it's the first time I'm hearing it. But you know what, Howie? Um, Again, no, the NCCA has the right of first refusal for the property. So if the insinuations are true, nakapanghihinayang kasi hindi naman mapupunta doon sa private individuals itong property na ito, no? The NCCA will definitely exert its right of first refusal to get this property if it was for sale, no? I don't, and that's the sad part. If I'm hoping it's not true, but if it were, it was a waste really of the building, because there was no way that the private individual or private company would be able to get the post office, given that there were already discussions for the transfer of the building, informal discussions, no, for the transfer of the building to government cultural agencies. So it's sad if we still, in this day and age, we still have people thinking about arson just so that they can gut the interior of the property and have a clean slate, because there's a hotel in Manila that gutted the interior of one of our historical landmarks, and if people think that in this day and age it's still possible, oh good lord, it's sad, no? But yes, we need a strong statement about investigating the fire, how it happened on the weekend, and how it happened um, during outside office hours, no, from the basement. We really need to look into also our how do I say this, our capacity as a country really to fight fires also, especially for historic buildings like this. I mean, I'm not saying that it's kulang. I mean, if Paris lost the Notre Dame Cathedral, and
The
um,
modern country.
modern country, yeah, with all the
State of the art
necessary,
siguro yung firefighting equipment nila dyan.
yeah, state of the art yung kanilang firefighting equipment, no. So it's ano, our investigation is not to find blame but to find answers, so that we can um really prevent these things from happening again in the future. So, but as I mentioned earlier, it really requires a holistic approach. We really need to start inventorying all these structures, do hazard, how do I say this, hazard prevention for all our historic buildings. As you know, these buildings are very old. They don't have the necessary maybe sprinkler systems, or what have you, for fire. So we really need to look at all this. But I know why people are concerned, because those with malicious intent usually like burning our old buildings so that there's really nothing we can do. No, look at there have been previous incidents of fires, like in historic buildings such as the PNB building in Escolta, no, that got burned, and of course the city of Manila decided to demolish it. No, So it's no, it's
So
it
may precedent, and maybe that's why it's also
yeah.
understandable why
I
people
mean,
would have suspicions.
I'm not surprised why there are discussions like that, no, because we've had previous incidents where fire would hit a building that people are trying to protect, no, and of course there is talk of other of how do I say this, businessmen or investors wanting to get the property but couldn't get their hands on it because people are vigilant, no, to protect. No, but in particular for the post office, I don't think that people will be able to get their hands on that, especially since it's a very important landmark in the city. I know there have been proposals to make it look like the Fullerton in Singapore because Singapore's post office was converted into the Fullerton Hotel. But I think a landmark like the post office should be used for something else, no? Something that the public can use and not just a few individuals who have the money to pay for the restaurant or accommodation at the hotel, no? It should be something that the public can access, no, because it's a very important landmark of the city. I think that entire civic area should be should be a should be really a landmark that people that there's public access because you have Rizal Park, you have the National Museum complex, now you have the Metropolitan Theater, you have the walls of Intramuros around that area. No, so the only buildings that are left actually are that post office in Manila City Hall. Who knows? Maybe in the future, Manila City Hall can find I know Manila is tight, but maybe we can convert that building into something else, and Manila City Hall can build a high rise somewhere else, and decongest that civic center. So these are just thoughts. I know the City Hall is very tight right now. Maybe they can find another property that can be that can be we can do a vertical construction of a new City Hall. Yeah. But these are
Mhm.
just thoughts, no? But
Yeah, yeah,
again, the fire, while tragic, also gives us the opportunity to rethink our plans for the area.
yeah. And to think about maybe there are some new options then for the future, no? Kasi yun nga, nabanggit mo yung Fullerton Hotel sa Singapore that was a converted post office na colonial era din, ano? So people are looking at that as an example of what could be done with the Manila Post Office. Pero you just mentioned that there's another maybe even better alternative, which is to keep it a public space, to keep it a public building where you don't have to pay,
Yeah,
exorbitant prices for
it's
a drink, etc. No, and it becomes an elite access kind of institution. So, but of course, the advantage of turning it over to a private developer and with a promise of retaining its colonial flavor and the architecture and all of that is because private developers will invest capital and money to protect it, and maybe we'll have the money or means to install state of the art fire prevention equipment so it doesn't happen again, no? But we've had examples in the Philippines of colonial structures that have been converted
yeah.
to newer uses, right? Without turning it over to private developers.
Yes, definitely. The National Museum buildings are an example of adaptive reuse. These are I mean, the main building of the National Museum used to be our legislative building, where the Senate and the
Mhm.
House used to be.
That's right.
The other two buildings were also offices of the government. So, adaptive reuse has been very successful in the government side, which is why I'm confident that if the National Museum is finally given ownership of the property, they would be able to do something really good to it.
Mhm.
It can be an arts and culture hub. It can be um, a center for creative industries. No, we can have little museums there. We can have galleries that people can visit, and mind you, the National Museum is free. We don't have to buy an
Mm.
expensive drink to
I
enter.
know.
We don't have to book an expensive hotel room to be able to see what's
Mm.
inside. No? So definitely, this post office building has to be accessible and remain accessible to the public, because this is something that all Filipinos should be able to enjoy, and not just a few, elite, rich, individuals who can afford, these expensive drinks. It should be accessible to the general public.
Well, the National Museum has been widely praised as a, an excellent example of adapted use, something that was converted from an old building into a structure that's still very accessible to the public. Sabi mo nga, it's a museum that's free. You know, there are dyan sa Paris ang mahal ng entrance fee ng mga
Oh,
maraming museums
yes.
diyan, no? Pero
Yes,
yung
yes.
National Museum natin libre, no? So and it's very, even the interiors, no? In other words, magagawa naman natin sa Pilipinas, no? And then you also mentioned the Metropolitan Theater, that I know there was a struggle over that for a while, no? Na matagal din nakatenga yan, no? Kasi it's also very visible, no? Nadadaanan niya ng papunta sa Espanya, no? From Manila, and
Mm.
talagang it was in a decrepit condition for over a decade, no? Pero yun, it was rehabilitated as well. So in other words, for someone like yourself who has been paying attention to these developments, what will it take for the Manila Post Office to have a better future?
Well, first, no, need to really start discussions on what we plan to do with the area as a whole. And I'm talking about the Manila Civic Center, which includes the post office, the Metropolitan Theater, Liwasang Bonifacio, Aroseros Forest Park, Mayhan Gardens. That's another sore thumb, which we need to fix. That used to be our botanical garden, but naman, tinayuan siya ng park and ride facility, and then marami ng mga buildings na itinayo. Manila City Hall, the National Museum Complex, and of course Rizal Park. And then of course the structure. Sorry, Intramuros. The walls of Intramuros are also in that area. No? So we need to talk about ano nga ba yung plano natin there. How are we going to, um, you know, redesign or rethink what the area should be for the Filipino public. And I have to stress this: it should be for the Filipino public. It shouldn't be for a small few who could afford drinks at an expensive hotel. No, we need to rethink what to do with all the public open spaces. No, I think that the Paulo Alcazaran proposal of removing all those flyovers in front of the Metropolitan Theater and the post office is really something we should consider, because this used to be an public open space. This used to be a park that people can actually enjoy. No? So, and then the next question is, what
Can
do
I
we
just
do with the
interrupt
post?
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Can I before we move on to beyond the flyovers, no? Kasi that's a pretty controversial proposal, no? I mean, no matter how attractive it would be to heritage advocates. Kasi for a lot of people, the public, the commuting public, yung paggawa ng mga flyover na yan, yung mga ganyang klaseng infrastructure, it's considered an improvement, no? Kasi you create space for motor vehicles. I'm talking about the ordinary commuter and citizen, so but you're saying that gibain natin yan, no? What's considered an
Well,
improvement, and go back to the former. Kasi how will you deal with
Howie.
the traffic? Yeah.
Yeah, think about it
Yeah.
this way. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking about improvements, but it's actually improvement for private vehicles, no?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, please, when we construct roads, it's not an improvement for the commuter. It's an improvement for a private vehicle. No, I think we should be focusing our efforts on improving our public transport system. I love Paris. You can commute anywhere. You can take a train anywhere. But in Manila, you cannot get around unless you know the jeepney system or and you can't wear a suit in a jeep. No, but I'd really love it when I can go to the Metropolitan Theater and take public transportation in my barong. That would be an amazing thought. No, so again, no, we have to change that mindset that roads are what's best for the public. My goodness, Manila is the densest city in the world. Okay. And if we are going to focus on roads, we won't have anything left. Everyone's just going to be constructing roads on top of each other. We should be focusing on public transport, a tram system, an underground train system in Manila. I think these are things that we should be talking about. So this flyover thing, it's not an improvement. It needs to be removed because we need to change the paradigm. We need to change the mindset of people about what is an improvement. And I think the improvement that we should be looking towards is public transportation, not private cars. Okay, it's public transportation. So that's why I'm saying that we really have to look at it in a holistic way. We need to um, really talk about how this district should look like, and we're not saying remove the flyovers and replace them with nothing. No, no, we actually can start building underground. No, that's why I'd really suggest you take a look at Paulo Alcazaren's proposal. It's a very easy, well, not easy, but it's a very simple fix that would require a lot of infrastructure work. No, basically it's just rerouting everything else, and you can move all the transportation. In fact, you can have jeepney terminals underground already instead of above ground, and it lessens the traffic that goes through the area. We all know that there's a lot of congestion there because of the public transportation that is still that needs to be how do I say this? It needs a little bit of fixing. No, so yeah, it's roads are not necessarily an improvement. Okay, but if you talk about public transportation, yes, it is an improvement if we fix our public transportation system.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to get in the mind of the ordinary commuter who's been brainwashed by the status symbol of cars and motor vehicles. But that I try to bike everywhere. No,
Oh, no, that's
I
why,
try to
Howie. That's
bicycle everywhere. Yeah, that's why I don't know. I'm trying to be devil's advocate, but just to I'm able to compare experiences kasi Ivan, I bike in Manila. I live here now in Malate, so I bike to Binondo. So and Escolta. So I have to cross the Pasig, and it's very difficult. I still do it, but because I love to bike, but it's difficult, it's dangerous, it's irritating, nakakainit ang ulo, etc. But I still choose it because it's still more convenient for me than trying to find parking, no? And last year, I was in Paris, Ivan, where I didn't take any motorized vehicle at all because it's so bikeable, no?
Oh, yes,
Paris.
yes.
You got bike shares. I've downloaded an app where you pay a certain amount of euros every day. It's very reasonable. And then you just you rent a bike from one station to another. And I was not staying. You're probably staying in a very nice hotel, no, in Paris. But I was staying in an Airbnb in a suburb outside
Yeah.
Paris na medyo malayo. Pero nakakabisikleta ako araw-araw papasok ng Paris, no, to the
Yes.
high-end part of Paris from this kind of low-end part of metropolitan Paris, all by bicycle, without any. In fact, you see more of the beautiful
Yeah,
city. So,
definitely.
so I totally get what you're saying, and I'm really hoping that we one day we'll have the visionary leaders that's going to make this come true. But in the meantime, you and Paolo and others are setting this kind of vision. So it's good that we're talking about it right now.
Yeah, definitely. The bike lanes here are amazing. You see people in suits biking. here in Paris, although of course mainit sa Pilipinas, it's a very different situation. But yeah, biking is a very sustainable way of getting around. I think that if we do rethink our road system, we have to consider the bikes and public transport. Last priority dapat ang private cars, private vehicles. We shouldn't be thinking about private vehicles anymore. We should be thinking of how to transport the biggest number of people as efficiently as possible. No? And it definitely is not going to be private vehicles. It has to be public transportation. We have to also allow bikes. No?
Mm.
I wish
And
we
it's going
could
to
do
take
bike.
it's you know
Yeah, I wish we could do bike shares in the Philippines, but up to such a time that meron tayong disiplina na hindi nakawin yung mga bikes na yan.
Well,
It's
certainly, there needs to be a cultural change, no?
Yeah,
That's
oo.
one problem. Another problem with that bikers experience almost daily. Binabastos talaga kami ng
Oh yeah, I can
mga
see that.
mga motorista, no? It's we're not respect. Anyone small is not respected, no? Kung malaki ka, kahit truck driver ka, no? Kahit may PhD ka, nakabisikleta, hindi ka irerespeto niyan, no?
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
in Paris and in other major cities in Europe and in Japan, halos wala nag-helmet kasi hindi kailangan kasi halos there's hardly any risk na babanggain ka ng
Yes.
motorista because
Mm.
the road is shared, no? The road is
Yes.
shared genuinely with everyone who needs it. So yung mga
Actually,
kotse they have a turn, the bikers have a turn, the walkers, the pedestrians have a turn. At lahat yan nirerespeto. When it's your turn, nirerespeto ka, no? Hindi ito
I've never
survival of the
seen
biggest.
I've never seen people wearing helmets while biking here in Paris. That is correct. How it's a very safe place. Europe's very safe for bikers, and I think really have to have this paradigm shift in the Philippines that things have to change, and it's going to be a very long process. It's something that we can't do overnight. And what I'm saying is that this incident, this fire incident, is something that can be a trigger for all these discussions of how we are able to change the way we can start. As I said, we can start with Manila Civic District. No, we can talk about how we can rethink the area, for the future. It's something that it can be a showcase, and I've always said that Iloilo City is a really good example of what Manila should be doing. No? And of course, the post office. No? What can we do with the post office? I think that I mean, I posted my proposals. I posted some of them on my Facebook page. No, I think the post office property should be transferred to the National Museum. And the National Museum should lead its restoration. No? And it can be converted into a arts and culture hub, a center for creative industries. It can become museum spaces, no, that would be accessible to the general public. No?
Ivan, of course you're in Paris, so yung unang pumapasok siguro sa isip natin ngayon ay yung anong ginagawa diyan sa Europa, sa Paris. But dito sa Pilipinas, dito sa atin, there have been some good examples of conservation, visionary thinking, itong sinasabi mo. Maybe not in Manila yet so much, but ako, when I go to Iloilo, parang nakakaingit,
Yes,
no? Kasi
Iloilo.
I've been going to Iloilo for decades, no? And I remember that river there na talagang punong-puno yan ng debris, ng mga wrecks ng mga barko, etc. And within our generation, no? Parang nalinis nila, nakapaglagay sila ng promenade. I understand Paulo Alcazar was also quite
Yes.
involved
Yeah.
there, no? So, um, tell us about some good best practices that you've seen in the Philippines, to inspire the Manileños to get their act together.
Yeah, I definitely think Manila should look at what Iloilo City is doing. They've been able to really bring back, all these landmarks for the public to be able to benefit from. That Iloilo River Esplanade is an amazing infrastructure project that has allowed people to walk and bike and run along the river, no? And it is continuously being done. It's not just one area, but the entire city. They're slowly by phases putting river esplanades, and this can be done in Manila. It can also be done in the esteros of Binondo. And if you look at old maps of Manila, these districts were actually Quiapo is an island, Binondo is an island, no? So we can actually have walkways by the estero so that it doesn't become a garbage dump. No, people actually it becomes the front view rather than the back of the houses, of the structures. No, it should be the front. In fact, in many other countries, the rivers are the frontages. No, of these properties, no? So another thing that Iloilo is doing right is it's cleaning up the plazas, no? Haro Plaza, they are demolishing that barangay building, the offices that were built on the structure, no? I remember informally Senate President Zubiri saying that he wanted to demolish the park and ride facility behind the Metropolitan Theater, no? I think we should bring back the parks in the area. Mayhan Garden used to be a botanical garden, but the city of Manila just kept on constructing stuff on it. It now has a university, and there's that park and ride facility that I think should go as well. Um, and that's why I was saying that the flyovers they can go, and we can find another. It just needs a how do I say this? We just need to rethink how to reroute everything on ground and below ground rather than above ground. Because what we want to do is we want to connect Liwasan Bonifacio to the Metropolitan Theater and everything else without people having to run for their lives. No, it's just to cross the street in P. Burgos. It's running for your lives. I don't even think there's a pedestrian light or to transfer from the post office to the Metropolitan Theater and the rest of Manila. You have to run, no, and that's the tragedy of the whole area. This is supposed to be our civic
Mm,
center, and it's really centered
mm,
on vehicles, not
mm,
people.
mm,
I think
mm,
we should start focusing on people when we talk about our plans for the area. How will people on
mm.
foot, no, benefit from the area?
So what's the formula, no? Kasi sabi mo nga sa Iloilo there was a rethink and a cultural paradigm, cultural, social, cultural, political shift in the paradigm, development paradigm. What will it take in Manila? Ano bang anong I know this is not an overnight process, no? Pero based on what's happened in the past, and dyan in Europe we know similar transformations have taken place. I have friends in Amsterdam, no, who said that dati ang dumi-dumi rin ng mga ilog doon, and then in their lifetimes nalinis nila, and people in Singapore have said the same thing, no? So I'm sure there's hope for Manila, no? And we don't need to look far kasi you just described what Iloilo. What needs to happen for this cultural shift, this paradigm shift to happen?
Well, it's really with the leadership. The leadership has to understand um, how they can um, re rehabilitate the city, and revitalize the city, so that it becomes something that is accessible to everyone. No, not just the private vehicles. I don't want to say commuting public because there might be a misconception that I'm talking about private vehicles, but I want to focus on the private vehicles. We need to stop focusing on them and focus on how we can transport people around, how to make Manila walkable again. That stretch. I heard that stretch from Padre Burgos in front of the National Museum. It's a little bit sketchy to walk in that area. Not many people walk there. I've seen it. No, not that many people walk in that area. I think that in fact. I'd go as far as saying that we need to get rid of that golf course around Intramuros and convert it into a public park as well. No, we should remove that wall that was built from the pedestrian from the sidewalk, no, to the golf course. In fact, Paulo has been suggesting that we should bring back the moat in around Intramuros because it's going to be a
Mm.
flood mitigation strategy. No, so when it floods in Manila, the water goes into the moat rather than it lingers in every other place around the civic center. No, so I know there are a lot of avid golfers out there who who might feel now that's our golf course, but I think that there would be better use for it as a public park and as a catch basin for floodwater. No? Um, it if that's what I'm saying. We have to rethink and change our mindsets really and start focusing on the public and not just a few people who can afford a drink or who can afford to play golf or who can afford to drive a car. We really need to rethink our those paradigms, those mindsets that we have, so that when we create these plans, it's really for the benefit of a larger group of Filipinos, the general public, rather than just a few people. So it's leadership. No, we need the city of Manila to really see that they need to put their foot down and say that we want a livable city. We want a city where people can walk and people can just sit down in front of the monuments, and then city hall should be more, how do I say, relaxing to visit. Outside we can do some parks where there can be some benches. If we have that kind of vision that Iloilo City had, no, Manila really needs to look at what Iloilo City is doing. And the bike lanes, you've seen the bike lanes in Iloilo, no? Especially with the
Yeah,
new
I bike there. I
roads.
bike there at night. Oo. Oo.
Yeah,
Yeah, doon sa
it's
esplanade. And what they're doing there in Iloilo is they're planning and building with inclusivity in mind, no? Hindi ito yung
yes.
guguhit ka lang na pahabol na guhit para sa bisikleta. They have exclusive lanes just for bikes, and that's the way you do it. That's the way modern societies are doing it now, no? Hindi you see it everywhere. You see it in Japan, Taiwan, everywhere where, bicycles are not just for recreation, it's for transport. But we want to let you go now. We know you're busy. Exciting pakinggan itong mga kinikwento mo. Sana makita natin itong mga pagbabago, no, na yan sa lifetimes natin. We want to thank you, Ivan, for your time and for this advocacy and vision. Dr. Ivan Henares, Heritage Advocate, UP Professor at ngayon Secretary General ng UNESCO National Commission of the Philippines, na nag-a-attend ngayon ng mga meeting dyan sa Paris, France. Mabuhay ka and have fun in Paris while you're there. Thank you so much for your
I
time.
wish I could have fun, but we have meetings, Howie.
Hi, I'm Howie Severino. Check out the Howie Severino podcast, an original for GMA News and Public Affairs. New episodes will stream every Thursday. Listen for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms.